community, welcome to Behind the Message. We just got done filming week 1 of Making Room in Advent, and I'm joined by founding pastor Dave Ferguson. I'm Sherry Banky. I am part of the small groups team at the Yellow Box location. Our message is all based on this book from Betty Dickinson, and so you can get this book wherever you like to get your books from. But you can get that and join us for this entire Advent season. But before we kind of jump into the message, You mentioned one thing at the top of the message that I think we need to go back for, which is we don't want to skip over Thanksgiving completely yet. You mentioned that your dad likes to pause.
Oh my gosh.
And ask what you're grateful for.
Yes.
And so can we begin?
It's a form of torture. Go watch the message. My dad likes to torture the whole family while the Thanksgiving meal gets cold.
Yes. And we'll make you wait here before we jump in on the Advent message, but something that you're thankful for this
Something I'm thankful for. Oh, for real. Well, I mean, my family. Josh is coming into town tonight, and Amy along with him, picking him up at the airport, and then Caleb will be in town Wednesday, so we'll have the whole family, and then the whole extended family, so that's cool. That's one thing. You know what else, though? I just got back from Europe. I was in Europe for 2 weeks, getting to be a part of Exponential Europe.
Very cool.
And I was part of 4 different church planting conferences, 4 of the 8 regionals that we have over there, and I'm really grateful that, one, I get to be a part of what's going on over there, which is amazing. But also I'm really grateful because it was remarkable to see our church's influence in leaders across Europe. And I wish we had more time to talk about that, but I'm really grateful for that.
Very cool. I think we can take for granted that community is just here, but we really are making an impact across the globe.
Well, yeah, because through community, New Thing was started, which we now help plant over 5,000 churches. And then also Exponential was started. And so a lot of the content that Exponential uses is the stuff that, you use with your leaders every week. And it's so wild to go to some place like Budapest, Hungary, or, Riga, Latvia, and hear church planners talk about, I have an apprentice, and I use the 5 steps, or ICNU, or the napkin dream, those kind of things. So anyway, I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So Advent is really this kind of Christmas tradition. And so do you have any traditions, family traditions that you do during the Advent season?
We do have some family traditions. I'm not sure they're particularly spiritual.
I think that's okay. If you don't mind sharing.
A couple things. Almost always the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we go get a Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. And it is, I don't know why, it's fun. There's a lot of joking, and we always make a stop at Starbucks. And then we come back and we put the Christmas tree up. And Sue kind of makes sure everybody has to put at least one ornament because she ends up doing the whole tree. Yeah. It's kind of a funny thing because she has a certain way she wants the tree, but at the same time she also wants everybody to participate.
I can respect that.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. And so everybody puts an ornament on there, at least one, and then after it's decorated, this is the absurd part, and we've been doing this for years, and I think we did it again last year. We actually, because now my kids are in their 20s and Amy's in her 30s. Mm-hmm. So, we still will make like a circle like around the Christmas tree, and we'll sing "O Christmas Tree," like O Tenenbaum. Except the goofy part is we actually don't know the chorus. Oh my. So when we get to the chorus, it's always like da 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 da. It's like something out of, I don't know what, Charlie Brown. Yeah. So that's not particularly spiritual, but it's something we do. We have fun.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So let's jump into Advent here as far as making room for Advent. And we really just talk about the waiting, which is really what Advent is all about.
Yep.
Can you tell me about a time when God felt silent to you?
There's been a few times where you felt like you were praying specifically for something and you were getting nothing back. It felt like your prayers are just kind of bouncing off the ceiling. Mm-hmm. I remember particularly as a young adult in college, there was something that I was praying about that I really wanted some clear direction on, and I asked and prayed and prayed and prayed, and I felt like I was getting nothing, and I felt like I was praying in earnest, and maybe for me that was the first time I went through that, but it messed with me for a while, and to be praying about something very specific like that and feel like you're getting nothing back, and you're just waiting. It was hard.
How did you see God working through that waiting for you?
In the message, we talk about one of the things that God does in the waiting is He teaches you to trust Him. And I think maybe, in some ways, I think your spiritual life can be a little bit of a roller coaster. And there's times, where you're just going, oh man, where's this thing, going? And I think you over time, you kind of, maybe that's not a good analogy, but you trust it, I guess. Yeah. When there's even weeks or months or sometimes years where you don't get the answer that you're looking for, I think over time you do start to trust it because you have seen God then eventually come through. And then in retrospect, you look over your shoulder and you go like, okay, that makes sense. And you see how God used that. But the first couple of times through it, it's pretty scary.
No, that's true. I've had those experiences myself where you have to have a little history to kind of go back to, I guess.
It's not unlike any other relationship, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
What comes to mind for you?
As far as seasons when God has felt silent to me? The biggest one for me is whenever my husband was sick. My first husband, if people aren't aware of my story, my first husband passed away from cancer. And so I felt like I was going through doing the right things, saying the right prayer and stuff. And that was probably the first time in my faith journey. And it took a season of grief, I think, to be able to get through that and be able to see that God was working in the midst of that. But you kind of have to be a little removed from it, I think, especially if you're in a season that's long suffering, long waiting. It does take time to kind of navigate through that, but you do come out of that, the peak, like you said, the peak in the valley, where you can kind of look back and you can see God's hand. Sometimes just in the midst of it, though, it's really challenging, I think, to see God working.
I'm curious, was there some of that you felt like, were there parts of that you felt like, I still don't have complete answers on that, and it's just kind of, you have to live with that?
Yeah. I've learned to live in the tension of the questions, that's for sure. There's definitely still a mystery within that season of my life, and continued to be other seasons in my life where I think you get more comfortable with the tension of the mystery and not knowing, and you don't, at least for me anyway, don't spend the time, I guess, ruminating on the mystery of the question that will not have the answer, I guess, specifically anyway, where I think in the midst of it, whenever it feels dark, I still was able to see God is good, God is loving, and God is with me, even in the midst of that. So even if the outcome hasn't changed or an answer isn't given, those key things are true, and they tend to even reveal themselves even kind of in those valleys and stuff that I've experienced as well.
I think for everybody listening in too, those are three great takeaways that are constant. Would you say God is with me?
God is good.
God is good.
God is loving. God is with me.
God is with me. Yeah.
In the midst of that. Can you think of some practical things we can share with folks who are in this kind of season of waiting, specifically, not just Advent season, but just maybe hard things in their life that they're waiting for?
It's probably easier said than done, but I do think to kind of look for where God's at work. And I even kind of describe it as sometimes, or I've heard other people describe it as like a God hunt. Like, okay, where is God at work here? And where He may not be answering your specific prayer, or there may be something you're specifically waiting on. I think to really go like, okay, where do I see God showing up? That's something I think you can do. I think there's also some things you could not do. Yes. Because there's so many ways we try to numb the pain. You can list them all, whether it's drugs or alcohol or pornography or something else to do with sex. There's so many ways that we try to numb the pain of waiting, because waiting can be very, very, very painful. So I try not to do that. And maybe the best way, maybe it's the second do. So if it's do a God hunt, don't just kind of numb the pain. Maybe something else you could do is wait in community. Because if you're doing this with other people too, they will support you. You'll see God at work in their life. They'll also help point out where God's at work in your life. And I think they also keep you from doing destructive things. That's a couple thoughts.
No, especially doing it in community, because we weren't intended to carry our burdens on our own. And that's the way that a community can come alongside of us and share those burdens with us in this long season of waiting, if that's what you find yourself in.
Well,
We
that was
weren't
kind of part of
intended
your
to do
story
it.
too, though. I
Yeah.
mean, if we go back to your story, I mean, as hard as that was and still unresolved, some things that you talk about are still a mystery or unresolved. I think it was a community of folks that kind of got you through it.
Absolutely. I mean, a community of folks within a small group context, which has actually led me to be a small group director. So
Yeah.
definitely life-changing in the midst of that, and has been alongside me in other seasons of waiting and, hardship and stuff too. So
Yeah, I mean, just having this conversation too. I mean, if anybody's listening and they are waiting, they're trying to, on a prayer, on a resolution, on a dream, that would be, I mean, if you gave me just, okay, only one piece of advice, I would say, yeah, get in a small group.
yeah, definitely.
And it'll make all the difference in the world.
Very cool. Well, thank you for responding to my questions here on this
Absolutely.
week 1 of Advent. We have a few weeks following as well, but you definitely want to get this book. It'll help you dive into this Advent season for the next 4 weeks as we journey towards Christmas. Thanks for joining us for Behind the Message, and for anything happening here at Community, you can visit us at communitychristian.info. But have a great week. Bye.
Wait, no, 25 years on the cut, but how long has Community been around? 30 plus?
Oh, yeah.
We just celebrated 30?
It's 33
Is it 33?
because we
Yeah.
started in 89.
33.
That's the age Jesus died.
That's it. We're done. It was a good.
No.
It was a good run.
Uh-oh. Well, this might be our last podcast.